trying to figure out the playoffs right now. It makes no sense. We'll do it again Tuesday night. It still won't make a whole lot of difference. Saturday's where the action is, not Tuesday night.
Yeah, and we'll peel this back layer by layer with some of the stuff that happened on Saturday. We'll start in the SEC. I want to start with Ole Miss and Georgia. Ole Miss wins 28-10. Second time in school history they've beat a team in the AP top two. I want to attack this first from the Ole Miss side. We've been on here for 11 weeks. We've been talking about how Lane Kiffin has the team to get it done this year. They've come up short twice. They knew their season was on the line on Saturday. And Paul, from my eyes, I don't know what you saw. Ole Miss dominated Georgia from start to finish. They were the better team on Saturday.
It wasn't close. And Matt, let me say it to be front end. I'm as guilty and maybe more guilty than anybody else. The narrative that Lane Kiffin can't win the big game just gets stuck to him. Fair or not fair, you can never say that again. That was the biggest win of Lane Kiffin's career, and I'm really happy for him because he's a guy that we pay attention to all the things that don't matter, but at the heart of the matter, he's an elite football coach. And he proved that yesterday. And what happens to him from this moment, I don't know. But you can never say he can't win the big one. I mean, he slew the biggest dragon in college football yesterday, and it was just almost it was a pummeling. And almost wasn't even trying to score at the end of the game. They had to kick field goals because they were just doing the math. I mean, it was a bludgeoning. And to watch Georgia, just be disemboweled was almost scary to the eyes. But Kiffin built that program after losing to Saban every year, and finally last November, Matt, just getting just blown apart by more than 30 points in Athens. He decided, I can't do this anymore the
Yep.
conventional way, and he ended up getting 17 starters from transfers, and his football team is amazing. I don't know how they've lost a game this year. They easily could be the number one team in the country had they not just completely wasted the Kentucky game and melted down in Tiger Stadium. But they're still one of the best teams in the country, and it's hard to imagine a more dangerous team heading into the final couple of weeks of the season.
I'm glad you brought it up because, first of all, Lane's an interesting guy because he's an offensive. I mean, he can call ball plays as good as anybody in the country. It's funny because you watch him during the games, and even right after the game. Look, I know the students stormed the field early, and he was really angry about that. And he probably should have been, but it's like Lane, enjoy the moment a little bit more. He looked as if he wasn't enjoying what was going on. He probably did afterwards, but it's funny watching him because he did say after last year's game, and you saw the fruits of that statement yesterday, in that he's like, we don't have guys up front. We're not big up front. We can't compete with Georgia on both lines of the sides of the ball on offensive and defensive lines. We got to go find those guys. The work that they put in was for yesterday's game to prove that they go up front with the biggest, baddest bullies in college football. And they did that. So that's check one. Lane did exactly what he said he was going to do, and he got the Georgia win. It is puzzling how they dropped a couple of games based on what we saw from them, and that's kind of the up and down nature. It's like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? But big picture, now you look at Ole Miss, Florida, and Mississippi State. Barring anything absolutely insane in a rivalry game. You saw what Texas did to Florida yesterday. We'll get to the Gators in just a couple of minutes. But barring anything insane, Paul, Ole Miss is going to be sitting there at 10-2, likely not playing in the SEC championship game, a win over Georgia. They've got to be feeling really good about themselves in Oxford this morning based on yesterday's outcome, based on the schedule, and based on everything that's happened in front of them.
They are, and yeah, listen, he is different. Lane, but Lane wears a mask, as you know, Matt. You've been around him, and he doesn't show emotion. And he's been through a lot. He was a coach way too young. He went through some difficult times. He got exiled, and this is the coronation of an incredible comeback that began really in 2014 when he went to work for Nick Saban. He spent 3 years there, and they were difficult years,
Yep.
but they were necessary. And here he is, capable of anything, including winning the national championship. That's how good they are when they play at that level. And on the other side, Georgia just if they had been a dynasty for 10 or 15 years, it felt like yesterday was the end. But I know it's not. because they're the kind of program that has been up and down this year, and for the first time, and they are now in a playoff eliminator at home against Tennessee. It's a monster game. It feels a little weird considering how poorly they played, and I'm sure many around the country are saying, "How in the world can they come back?" But they have what still may be the very best coach in the country, and how he can patch that offensive line back together, and how he can give Carson Beck an emergency infusion of confidence. I don't know, but playing at home will help.
Yet Georgia, they're kind of it's ironic, by the way, and I don't want to skew off this too much because it's ironic that Georgia and Miami went down on the same day.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the Matt Barrie Show presented by Allstate or wherever you get your college football discussion, big picture, we have long been saying that Miami lives a little too dangerously. And if you play that way throughout the season, a loss will find you. And Georgia, same kind of thing. Like first halves of games this season, they've not been good, but they're Georgia. They find a way to squeeze the life out of you at the end and get away with a win. Carson Beck, we saw it last week against Florida, a very depleted Florida team. They were pushed around, shoved around, found a way to get the win at the end. And at some point, Paul, if that's how you were going about your business, they wasted time against Alabama. You're going to get got. And Ole Miss did that to Georgia yesterday. And you're kind of looking at this program over the last 5, 6, 7 years has kind of been invincible. And now you're poking at him and saying, well, Ole Miss got him, Alabama got him. The quarterback is struggling. They're not explosive like we're used to. Georgia, to your point, still very much in the conversation, but they're fragile going into the final few weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people overnight were saying, "Hey, is Georgia done?" No, might be a week from now, but again, it's impossible to figure out the Georgia situation right now. But one thing we know, Ole Miss. Uh, Rarely do you see someone, call his shot and deliver like Lane Kiffin did yesterday.
Just, I mean, I'm not going to put time into a 1-9 team here on the show, but that's not the biggest fall off in college football history
It
I
is.
mean, you know what? Hell with it. Let's talk about it for a second. They go from 13-0. I get it. Michigan's fall off. What are they? 5-4, 5-5 on the season after a national championship. That's one kind of fall off. From 13-0 to 1-9, while one of your star hit players is a head coach at Colorado that's got the Buffaloes and an opportunity to control their own destiny to win the Big 12 and make the playoff. I mean, we'll sit there in studio and be like, how do you go from 13-0 to 1-9?
No, it is the biggest fall off in college football history. I mean, Michigan, they lost their head coach. I mean,
Yeah. And
Florida
everyone else
State.
to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it was not. I mean, 3 to 5 losses were projected. I mean, three would have been great, four likely, five disappointing. But Florida State was a top 10 team when the season began. There's no excuse for that. And Mike Norvell has literally lost all the goodwill he had from a year ago. It's
Yeah,
gone.
we were, you know how we like to do this, but I was like, could you imagine? Let's just say Prime, they Colorado controls their own destiny. They went out, they're in the Big 12 championship. Based on what I was watching at 2 a.m. with BYU Utah, I know it's a rivalry, but there's nothing that says Colorado couldn't take care of Utah and make the
Right.
playoff. You're telling me there aren't people within the Florida State administration that's like, damn, should we go? I mean, Deion's ours. Deion can recruit. Deion's got like, should we kick those tires? Shador's gone. Travis Hunter's gone. That's going to be something that happens because of Deion's connection to Florida State and everything he did there.
Well, Matt, we both watch a lot of schools bring back the favorite son. And Deion, couldn't get a phone call from Florida State a couple of years ago, but in fairness, what had he done? Okay, um, he was now. I mean, he's one of the hottest coaches in the country. A lot of people were wrong. I was wrong. A lot of people were wrong, but that doesn't matter. That's who Deion is. He proves people wrong. But he's also arguably the most famous football player to ever step foot on in that stadium, and that's including a lot of people, by the way. And yeah, it's inconceivable, or is it that Florida State would say, Deion, we want you back. Mike Norvell, we are sorry. We think you're a great guy. Here's your buyout. Catch you later. Because Florida State a year ago was talking to all the Wall Street banks about buying their way out of the ACC. They have no credibility now. They need an infusion more than any program in this country.
Yeah, and all right, this will be funny. I can't imagine because a month and a half ago we'd be laughing at this because Colorado we still didn't know a lot about them, but they've risen from the ashes. Deion's kept uh his mouth shut a little bit. I know that
Yeah.
sounds a little vicious, but he's quieted down a little bit. Um, but could you imagine a world? Because I can, because I worked there and I know him. No one thinks Mike McCarthy's surviving with the Dallas Cowboys. No one. Jerry loves that kind of splash. Could you imagine Jerry just being like, huh, Deion, you know how to work with pro athletes.
Sure.
You don't have to recruit anymore. You get us a bunch of attention, surround yourself with assistants, and I got this thing going. I still don't believe that Deion Sanders is not going to be one of the most coveted coaches this cycle at any level.
Well, listen, I never really liked the Colorado job, but he's made the most out of it. It's been a struggle. He's already beaten the odds. It's a you know good time to get out. I mean, buy low, sell high. I mean, I'm not a broker, but that's not hard to figure out, and it's hard to imagine. It's just there's just too many complications out there, and you are. I mean, he's on a big stage, but it's nothing compared to what he would be. Yeah, well, first of all, there is nothing that compares to Dallas. It's the biggest franchise in all of sports when it comes to attention.
Yeah. Anyway, we Paul and I have been known to get on tangents throughout the years. That's our tangent here on this version of the Matt Barrie Show presented by Allstate. Let's get to Alabama and LSU. Uh, Operator put me on through. I'm going to send you down to Baton Rouge. And Brian Kelly coming in 13-0 night games since he joined the program. And that was one one of the most dominating, bludgeoning performances I've seen in that game. Two, here we sit, and Alabama's probably going to be in the college football playoff.
No, when they lost to Tennessee, it seemed over. They just didn't have a pulse. And they are back, and Kalen DeBoer has. I mean, he's coming close to cursing now. He, I mean, he's not. He doesn't look like the same coach we saw 4 weeks ago. And what do you say about Brian Kelly that hasn't already been cursed and uttered by tens of thousands of LSU fans? I mean, he went out and made a change at the defensive coordinator position. Looks like he might want to make another change. That was one of the poorest defensive schemes I've ever seen. Offensively, Nussmeier just simply, went in the tank. What we saw from LSU, Matt, should not have been a surprise. We've seen it every week. They screwed around the USC game. They absolutely shouldn't have beaten South Carolina. They beat Ole Miss in overtime on the final play to tie it in overtime and in regulation. And this is a team that's been living on the edge. And I'm foolish and many of us are foolish to think that they could correct it. They didn't. And Brian Kelly now is going to have to sell winning 10 games again, as if anyone will be listening.